Well, for more, we're joined by co-host of Planet America, John Barron, and the ABC's election analyst, Casey Briggs. Casey, to you first of all, just run us through the numbers. Where are we now?
Yeah, g'day, Ross. It just took 31 minutes from the time these caucus meetings began in Iowa to US networks being able to say they've seen enough. The number one candidate at the end, when all the votes are counted, will be Donald Trump. We don't yet know what number he'll end up on, but on 2% of the vote counted at the moment, he's on about 54.4%. So only 1,600 votes out of the more than 100,000 that we're expecting to see. Those numbers have been coming down as we're getting more and more urban areas starting to report their figures. He was at 70% half an hour ago. He's now at 54 or 55%. And there is a real race going on for second place. So these numbers from a short time ago show Nikki Haley and Ron DeSantis. They're actually jostling quite a lot for second and third. It is not yet clear which of those two candidates will come second, but they're the numbers as they stand at the moment. Donald Trump on more than half the vote. That is unsurprising. It might come down a little bit further, but that is what the polls predicted. And networks, as I say, half an hour after seeing exit polls, after analysing those polls and seeing really only a very small number of precincts and figures from those community centres around Iowa, have been able to say Donald Trump is the winner. So,
John, do we usually get a winner called this early?
No, not while most people are still to vote. It was quite a remarkable result. But in recent years, we've had maybe three candidates, including 2016 when Donald Trump came second to Ted Cruz. There were three candidates getting 20-something% of the vote. And the final polls in the weeks leading up to the Iowa caucuses also showed that any one of maybe three or even four candidates could possibly win. With a 30-point lead heading into the caucuses today, there was little doubt that Donald Trump was going to win. The polls also showed that enthusiasm for Donald Trump was off the charts. 88% of Trump voters were saying they were very enthusiastic or extremely enthusiastic to vote for Donald Trump, as opposed to 39% of Nikki Haley supporters saying they're very or extremely enthusiastic. Now, as it turns out, with a couple of feet of snow out there and a wind chill bringing the temperature down to about minus 30 degrees in Iowa on a Monday night, that enthusiasm has seen Trump voters getting out to vote. Certainly in those rural counties that were reporting early, which is the basis on which these early calls have been made, Trump was able to turn out his vote in the areas that are hardest to do. Country back roads, farming folks, communities that would, quite like to stay at home at 7 o'clock on a winter's Monday night. They went out to vote for Donald Trump. Such is their passion to see this man elected president again.
So what does this mean for DeSantis and for Haley then, and their futures?
Well, as Casey suggests, it is neck and neck between the two of them. Nikki Haley looks to be moving ahead of Ron DeSantis as more of these big precincts in places like the capital, Des Moines and Iowa City report. She is seen as a more moderate Republican with, she's more of an old school Republican, a George W. Bush or George H.W. Bush Republican. We used to call them neoconservatives, but now she looks quite moderate in the era of Donald Trump. So some independents and Democrats who tend to live in those urban areas look to have crossed over to support Nikki Haley. Looks like that'll get her to around 22% of the vote by the end of the evening. And Ron DeSantis is going to be stuck at around 16 or 17, similarly in line with what the polls were suggesting. But Ron DeSantis has spent $150 million trying to win this state. He's not only not won it, but it looks like he could be coming third. And for Ron DeSantis, we may see him decide to pack it in tonight. That could happen. His supporters, his mega donors are saying, no, he's in this right through until Super Tuesday in a month and a half from now, and he's going to still win, etc., etc. But at some point, he may in fact say, you know what, it's not going to happen. And the sooner I get out of this race, the more likely I am to become president in 4 years from now. Right. And that's a consideration for him because he's a young man in his early 40s. He wants to have a political future beyond these Iowa caucuses.
Nikki Haley had more confidence in New Hampshire rather than Iowa. Is that right? So she's put all her eggs in that basket, if you like, rather than Iowa?
Yeah, she hasn't been focusing as much on Iowa, which is a more conservative, evangelical Christian, much whiter state, 92% Anglo-Saxon background. New Hampshire, much more independent state, free-thinking. They like Nikki Haley. She's been getting 30+% in the polls there. Some polls had her within 7 or 8 points of Donald Trump last week. If she can leverage a strong win or a second place in Iowa today into maybe competing very strongly with Donald Trump next Wednesday, our time, in New Hampshire, well, the dream survives for her. If she somehow comes third, if DeSantis gets over her because of the amount of money he's spent on building a pretty formidable campaign in Iowa that is not delivering right now, but if he does sneak into second place, then Nikki Haley is the one with no momentum heading out of Iowa. So there is this fascinating race. And of course, both of them have it in the back of their minds. There are 91 indictments against the man who's just won the Iowa caucuses. 1/3 of Republicans heading into the caucuses, Ros, tonight said, 31% said, if he's convicted by election day, I will not vote for him. So 1/3 of Republicans are saying, we don't mind about the indictments, we do mind about convictions. Whether that pans out in November, we don't know. But that's the glimmer of hope for both Haley and DeSantis now.
So, Casey, have the numbers changed much while we've been chatting?
Yeah, they're continuing to shift a little bit. It's interesting, right, that the momentum on who comes second is so important here for these candidates. They're actually running pretty close together at the moment, and there's a very good chance that whoever runs third is only running third by a little bit. So 2% of the votes have been counted. Ron DeSantis, 19.3%, Nikki Haley, 18.1%. But I'll just point out that is 625 votes to 588. So we're talking a 40 or 50 vote margin is what we're looking at the moment. It is still very early days in this count. You really wouldn't call who is coming second at this point. But everything is going Donald Trump's way according to the strategy that he really wants to see. His 50, 60% of vote in some of these states will claw him the lion's share of delegates. 60% of the vote translates to about 90% of delegates when you actually do the maths and kind of look at how they allocate those delegates. If he's collecting that share of delegates, he's pretty well won the nomination by Super Tuesday and March 5th, perhaps a little bit later than that. March is also the month that his first trial is scheduled to begin.
We'll keep across this as the afternoon goes on. Casey and John, thank you.